Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're recapping an awesome series against the Braves where the Phils won 3 out of 4 and put themselves in prime position in the NL East. That and more on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me for some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been over at 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio here in Philadelphia for 5 years now. 3 years, I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member, and this is my third year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all those great things that help us out here on Locked On Phillies. They get you notifications when new episodes are posted. Helps you, helps me, costs no money, takes no time. It's super easy to do. I would really appreciate it if you did that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Folks, what a weekend it was for the Philadelphia Phillies. What a series it was for the Philadelphia Phillies against their division rival Atlanta Braves. It was an absolutely beautiful thing. The Phillies won 3 out of 4 games. 2 of those 3 wins, major comebacks, including last night. Let's work front to back from the series. We'll get to last night. We'll get to Nick Castellanos and a walk-off and everything. But I want to give this team some love top to bottom for what they did in this series against the Braves. First of all, game 1. You're down 4-0, and you end up coming back starting in the 6th inning. You score 5 runs in the 6th and 7th inning combined and end up winning 5-4. The bullpen shuts down Atlanta. It was one of those tough, tight games, but Brandon Marsh and Nick Castellanos came up big. Castellanos, a huge go-ahead home run in that one in the 7th inning. It was well done by the Philadelphia Phillies. And also in that game, Christopher Sanchez gave you 5 2/3 of 2 earned run ball with 8 strikeouts. Great sign. Now, game 2 was the only game that the Phillies lost, and they got kind of smoked in this one. It wasn't ideal for a couple of reasons. One, Reynaldo Lopez, if you see him again down the line, if the Philadelphia Phillies face the Braves in the postseason, because this is the last time the Philadelphia Phillies were scheduled to face the Braves in the regular season, there's a chance that we have watched the Phillies play the Braves for the final time of the 2024 season, which would be just fine by me. They're still a quality baseball team, and that's why this is such a good series victory for the Philadelphia Phillies, and you should feel awesome about where it puts them in the NL East race. But Reynaldo Lopez was really good. Ranger Suarez wasn't quite as good. Now, what I will say about Ranger Suarez in game 2 of this series is I know he only went 4 innings. I know he gave up 4 earned runs, but he struck out 6 and he only gave up 5 hits. It was just kind of unlucky a little bit from Ranger Suarez in that game against the Braves, and Orlando Arcia homered twice, and it wasn't a great game for the Phillies, but those are going to happen in a 4-game series. You're going to drop one. It's very rare to find a 4-game sweep, especially against an opponent of that magnitude. I don't really look at that as too much of anything, but the Phillies score 5 in game 1 of the series. They scored 2 in game 2 of the series. So you're starting to think, we haven't really had the offense wake up yet in the series. We might need to have a little bit of better pitching. So what happens? Except Saturday, you go out and you get Zach Wheeler to throw an absolute damn gem. I cannot overstate how good Zach Wheeler was on Saturday of this series. 7 innings, 4 hits, none earned, 7 strikeouts. You didn't even think about anything twice. Like, there was nothing that made you feel even nervous about this game. Jeff Hoffman, Carlos Estevez, shut down innings. The Phillies win 3-0 between Edmundo Sosa, 450-foot bomb that people didn't acknowledge. We're going to talk about that in a second. Trey Turner with a bomb of his own, not 450 feet, but 388. And then Edmundo Sosa with an RBI double. He had 2 of the 3 RBIs. It was great work by Sosa on a day where he won the Philadelphia Phillies 2024 Heart and Hustle Award. He deserves it. Filling in for Trey Turner, fighting every day to get his opportunities to play. Even on the days that he doesn't, he works hard. He's a great teammate. He was big in Game 3 of this series. And while Max Fried wasn't bad for the Atlanta Braves, The Phillies pitching was just better, and they scraped across enough runs to get it done. But 5 runs, 2 runs, 3 runs, no real blowout performances for the Philadelphia Phillies. And it set the stage for yesterday, which is the game that I want to talk about more. Because this game would have been the quintessential Philadelphia Phillies win of April, May, or June. Here's why. Just the way that this game played out seemed to make so much sense for how the Phillies were winning games earlier this year. First of all, you got good starting pitching, like really good starting pitching from Aaron Nola. But the Braves were able to scrape one across in the third, one across in the fourth. And the Phillies just couldn't get anything going against Spencer Schwellenbach. Like, I don't know what it is about Spencer Schwellenbach. The Phillies don't pick him up very well. And it was happening again in this game. Atlanta's pitching has been outstanding this year for them, even considering they don't have Spencer Strider, which could you imagine if Spencer Strider was part of that rotation? I can see why a lot of people picked Atlanta as a favorite for the World Series to start the season. But Strider done for the year, obviously not pitching in the series. Chris Sale did not throw in this series, which was hugely beneficial to the Philadelphia Phillies because, frankly, the way that they faced other pitchers in the Braves rotation, Sale might have no-hit him this weekend, but luckily you didn't have to worry about that. But what the Phillies did, right, and what Aaron Nola did on the mound, because he gave those 2 runs, one in the third, one in the fourth. Well, he ends up giving you 6 innings. He only allows 4 hits, so it wasn't too crazy of a bad performance. 2 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, 1 walk. He did give up a home run, but like you look at it and you say, oh, okay. He did his job. Aaron Nola gave you a start that put you in position to win last night's ball game. And what great teams do is they hang around until they get opportunities. And in the bottom of the 6th, the Philadelphia Phillies got an opportunity. With 2 outs, well, Trey Turner finds his way on base. And you get to a position where Bryce Harper has to come to the plate. So Trey Turner, I believe, walked to get on there in the bottom of the 6th inning. Let me just double check it was a walk. I mean, it was a long game. This one ended up going 11 innings. But when you look at the 4th inning and the play-by-play here on the ESPN, I have to re-jog my memory. I mean, 4-game series, a lot of games over the weekend, holiday weekend. You gotta keep up. But yeah, so you're looking at a situation where, bottom of the 6th. I'm an idiot. I was looking at the 4th. Bottom of the 6th, yes, Turner singled, actually. That's right. I had a feeling it was not a walk. Then Bryce Harper hit a double to left center where he ends up on second. Turner ends up on third. It was great base running by Bryce Harper to hustle to get there. It was just one of those looping ones. It wasn't actually a gapper. It was a looping one to left down the line. And then Harper and Turner are in scoring position with 2 outs. All this happening with 2 outs. The Turner single to bring Harper up. The Harper double to put 2 guys on. And then Nick Castellanos somehow gets like one of the worst 0-2 pitches I've ever seen with just a plated fastball after he can't swing it. Like he's swinging at everything, slider low and away. He gets a plated fastball from Spencer Schwellenbach. And the next thing you know, he deposits into the left field for a double. 2-2, brand new ball game. And now it's on the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen, right? And how good was the bullpen in this series? Like, just amazing. This Philadelphia Phillies bullpen, I'm telling you guys, they are ready for October. They are so good at the top end of this bullpen. And Jose Alvarado rejoined the team, so that's going to help if he can figure his stuff out. But just a Ryan Kerkering, dominant, 1 inning, allowed 1 walk but struck out 1, clean. Jeff Hoffman, dominant, 1 inning, did allow a hit but 2 strikeouts. Matt Strahm, bases loaded situation, works out of it. Absolutely monstrous effort from Matt Strahm in the 9th inning. And then in the 10th, Carlos Estevez goes out. Perfect 10th. Perfect 11th inning. 2 innings from the guy the Phillies acquired from the Los Angeles Angels at the trade deadline. 2 strikeouts for him to lock things down. The Braves didn't score since the 4th inning. And you're looking at a situation where the bullpen gave you an insane effort following up Aaron Nola's really good effort. And we all know how it ends, right? The Phillies had opportunities. They came close a couple times, but ultimately it came down to the 11th. And Nick Castellanos decided, hey, I've seen enough baseball. And he rips one up the middle, another 2-out RBI. He has all 3 RBIs on the game. Like you might say, well, why has this first segment not just been all about Nick Castellanos? And it's because, well, 1, I'm smart, and I've already been giving Nick Castellanos his love too. We recently did an episode about how Nick Castellanos has been majorly underrated recently for the Philadelphia Phillies, and gave him some love for what he did after that win against the Braves where he hit the go-ahead home run. And also because we had a lot of stuff we had to recap. But yes, Nick Castellanos plays walk-off hero and then gives one of the great interviews post-game on ESPN that you're ever going to see, where he's basically asked what he saw there in that final at-bat, and he says, four-seam fastball. And then he asked the lady interviewing him, Nicole Briscoe, I believe it was, if she watched the game and if she saw the highlight when she asked him about what happened when he saw that four-seam fastball. It's just Casty being Casty, man. But a great swing by him, a great series for Nick Castellanos, a great series for the Phillies, and it put them in position where they're now 7 games up in the National League East. I mean, when you look at that and you look around baseball, we're going to talk about this more in a second, but that is the second biggest divisional lead in all of baseball. It should make you very comfortable where the Philadelphia Phillies are at. I mean, the Mets are only 1 game back of the Braves. The Mets are in danger of the Braves are in danger of maybe not making it. The Mets are probably not going to make it, but the Phillies, that was the last time that they had a chance to make significant headway in the division in one series, and they came up huge. They've won 4 of their last 5 series. This team is back to being the baseball team we believe them to be, and we've got a lot more stuff that's going to make you feel really good in this episode of Locked On Phillies, because coming up, I'm ready to have a discussion about the division. Is the NL East all but wrapped up and put to bed? Well, we got a ways to go still, another month worth of baseball. Why would I think it is? I have some reasoning as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But let's talk about FanDuel first, because you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have a little something different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, not new customers, no, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, and here's what you'll get: a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So when you have a YouTube TV base plan, when you have that, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Let's say that you're listening to this from Seattle, and you're not a Seahawks fan, but you like the Eagles. Well, you do this with FanDuel, you go ahead and be in a position where, hey, you can watch Eagles games out of market. Like, just an example, but really any teams that you want to watch from anywhere, this is a great way to do it. It's a great deal with FanDuel. Again, a 3-week free trial, gets you 3 football games worth of stuff from YouTube TV's base plan and everything on NFL Sunday Ticket. Go ahead and check it out. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So use that $5, win that bet, and then get that free trial, all with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's talk about the division and if it's kind of wrapped up, because frankly, it should be. That's the baseline explanation. The division should be over for the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League East. I mean, I look at the standings, and we're just going to take a peek around baseball here. I know we've done this a time or two, but let's just humor me as we set this all up. In the American League East, the Yankees are only a half game up on the Baltimore Orioles. The Cleveland Guardians are only 3.5 up on the Twins and the Royals in the AL Central. That division's starting to get tight. The Houston Astros are only 6 games up on the Seattle Mariners, which that division should be comfortably in possession of Houston. But that's me on the outside looking in. Unbiased, wanting Houston to be out, actually. It's going to be hard for Seattle to track them down to win the AL West. Well, the Phillies have a 7-game lead in the National League East. Comparing that to all those divisions in the American League, the Phillies have a bigger buffer and a better chance than any American League team to lock up their division. The Milwaukee Brewers have a 9-game lead over the Chicago Cubs. That division's basically over. The Brewers should have their eyes set on the Dodgers, and the Phillies trying to lock down one of the top 2 seeds. The Dodgers, as good as they've been at 82-55, best record in all of baseball, they've only got 5 games up on the Diamondbacks and on the Padres. Both of those teams still threatening in the NL West. But I look at the Dodgers and I say, well, no one's going to chase down the Dodgers, right? That's not going to happen. No one's going to chase down the Brewers. No one's going to chase down the Astros. Those divisions are all wrapped up. Shouldn't we feel the same way about the NL East? Shouldn't we be feeling really good about the Philadelphia Phillies? Well, let's do some quick math because the Philadelphia Phillies record is 81-56. That comes out to a total of 137 games played, which means there are a total of 25 games remaining. In order for the Philadelphia Phillies to drop this lead in the division, they would have to find a way to lose, I believe, 8 more games. I think they have the tiebreaker over the Atlanta Braves based on season record. But even about, like, let's just get to the point where they tie. Like, you're not going to drop 7 games in 25 opportunities. You're just not, especially with the schedule that the Philadelphia Phillies have. We're going to take a look at September for the Phillies coming up and have a conversation on that, but let's take a look for the Braves. They're going to play the Rockies at home in Atlanta for 3 games, and then the Blue Jays, who the Phillies have coming up this week, are going to travel to Atlanta for 3 games this coming weekend. They have 1 makeup game against the Reds, then they play the Nationals. But guess what? 4 games against the Dodgers from September 13th to September 16th. They also have to play the Mets, and they round out with 3 games against the Kansas City Royals, which could be those final 3 games of the season for the Atlanta Braves against the Royals. Could be, are you getting into the postseason or are you sitting on the couch in October? That's crazy. Now, I think the Braves' schedule is favorable enough. They'll be able to make it into the postseason, but they have some tough series in there where they're not going to be able to get on a total roll. And this team, it just frankly hasn't been all that consistent enough to track down the Phillies with 7 games remaining. I was looking at Fangraphs, right, recently. Actually, this morning, I was taking a peek at Fangraphs, and the Phillies have like a 95.7% chance to win the division or something like that. Like, it is all but over. It might have been like 97.1%. Bottom line is the Phillies have a mid to high 90s% chance to win the division according to Fangraphs. Obviously, they're going to make the postseason, but that's why I feel like this division is all but wrapped up. And that's why the series was so huge, because the Braves knew what they were fighting for. Listen, the Braves choked a couple games away. They should have won last night's game, and they should have won game 1 where they were up 4-0. But that's the difference between what happened to the Phillies the past couple years when they played Atlanta late in the season and what's happening this year to the Braves. When the pressure is on you, it is much harder to close out an opponent that you think, 1, is playing better baseball than you, 2, is more talented than you, or like equally so, and 3, like, you need this game or they've got you dead. And the Philadelphia Phillies, well, yeah, they have pressure on them too. We know that from being in this spot, but they don't have as much. It's like, okay, just keep focusing, putting together good at-bats. We're not worried about anything. We drop today's game, guess what? We're going to go beat you tomorrow. We drop tomorrow's game, guess what? We're going to go beat you the next day. We drop all these games, guess what? We still have a lead in the division, so worst case scenario, we're still in the better position than you. That makes you have to play your asses off, Atlanta, when you come here to Philadelphia. And they gripped the bat a little tight, and the relievers didn't throw all that well for them, and they ended up with 3 losses out of 4 games. So, is the NL East over? I don't want to end up on Old Takes Exposed. I don't. So I'm not going to definitively say today on September 2nd, 2024, NL East is over, crown the Phillies, give them their first division title since 2011, the first time in 13 years they will have reached the pinnacle of the National League East. I'm not ready to say that yet. But in a week, call me. And if, like, I'll say it this way. If Old Takes Exposed was not a Twitter account, if screen recording was not a thing, and you could not, like, post this in a month if the Braves stage some miraculous comeback, or God forbid, even worse, the Mets do something crazy, I feel pretty darn good about the division. Like, I'm basically not – it's when, like, you're at work and you know you have a promotion that you're going to get. Like, there's no other candidate. No one else is even interviewed. You know that this is over. They're going to offer you the job. And you're still just like, yeah, but I don't want to say I've got it until I'm 100% sure. Like, I signed the paperwork. Everyone knows that crazy things can happen. You don't want to put that out in the universe as a surety until it is a sure thing. That's kind of where I'm at with the NL East. There are no other candidates. I know what's happening. I know who's going to have that division title when everything's all said and done. But I'm not ready to vocalize it just yet for sake of fear of karma, right? That's the only thing that I'm afraid of in the NL East right now. is karma if I say it's the Phillies, but I feel pretty darn good. You can read between the lines about how good I'm feeling about the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East. Coming up, we're going to discuss the September schedule for the Phils, why it's so darn easy, and honestly, why this has kind of been a perfect end to the season set up by the Philadelphia Phillies. Well, not all perfect, but close to it. We'll discuss as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. I want to tell you about Game Time first, though, because Game Time is the best. You got to check out gametime.co. They're amazing. You can download the app, and Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks, they filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time. Go ahead and check it out. Now, Game Time has a 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks Dodgers. You can go ahead and check that out if you're out on the West Coast. I was just out in Arizona not earlier this month, last month in August. Now the calendar's flipped to September, but if you're in that market and you want to watch some baseball while the Philadelphia Phillies are off, go ahead and check it out. Watch that in person. But for most people in Philadelphia, what you want Game Time for is for Phillies games, for Eagles games, for a bunch of stuff coming up, comedy, concerts, theater, all of that stuff that happens in this area that's great celebration of the arts that you need a ticket to go to. Well, go ahead and check out Game Time. They're amazing because they have a bunch of things. I told you about the Game Time picks, but they also have all-in pricing. So you get to see the full price of the tickets, fees included, before you hit the final screen. It doesn't just pop up at the end and all of a sudden $10 tickets or $100 tickets. Plus, you can see the view from your seat before you buy. They have the lowest price guarantee, which means if you find a seat in the same row and section for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they also have Game Time ticket coverage, which is the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So go ahead and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? Oh, it's Game Time. All right, let's discuss a little bit about the schedule upcoming for the Philadelphia Phillies, but I do want to remind you, or thank you again for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Please make your next listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sully does a great job hosting the Locked On MLB podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's an overview of what's going on around baseball. It's not just covering an individual team. So as the Phillies get ready for October, maybe you want to do some scouting, hear what's going on with the playoff pushes in other parts of the country and other parts of the league. Check out Sully on Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Again, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's look at the Phillies schedule and what they have, because I think it's a perfect balance of okay teams, bad teams, one great team, and the right ramp up for October. So the Phillies are hitting their stride once again. As they roll the calendar into September, they have won 4 of their last 5 series, including the last 2 series, one against Houston, one against Atlanta. That's a pretty darn good resume rounding out the month of August. Now they'll play the quintessential 2 games up in Toronto against the Blue Jays starting tomorrow. We'll preview everything you need to know about that Blue Jays series. Weird that they always play these random 2 games against Toronto, but whatever. It's become a tradition. Who knows? But you got 2 games against the Blue Jays, who are 67 and 72. You should beat that team in at least one of those games, maybe just one, because you're going to have to figure out the pitching situation with Taijuan Walker moving to the bullpen as a long relief man. We'll break all that down. But the Blue Jays, not a crazy opponent, middle of the road. Then you're going to play the Marlins for 4 down in South Florida. They're terrible. They're 51 and 86. You should beat the brakes out of them at least 3 out of 4 games. So that's a good opponent to build momentum against. Then you play the Rays for 3 games, and they're in the same kind of boat as the Blue Jays. 2 games below 500. Okay team, nothing too crazy. Should be able to take care of business. They're competitive, but they're not a great team. Then you're going to play the Mets. The Mets are 73 and 64. They're 9 games above 500. They have made a good push in the second half of the season to be in the conversation for a final wild card spot. I don't ultimately think they'll get there, but they're a divisional team, so you get the juices flowing with that a little bit. They're above 500 by 9 games, so they're a quality opponent. And it's okay, after you play a couple of series where you should be able to handle some teams, Then you get that like gut check series again, not quite to the level of the Atlanta Braves series, but you get a gut check series against the Mets saying, hey, let's ramp up and play a like almost playoff caliber opponent here for a couple games. Then you go to 3 games against the Milwaukee Brewers, and that is the crown jewel of September for the Philadelphia Phillies. That is the series they have to have. Currently, when you look at the National League standings, the Philadelphia Phillies are in second place, but Milwaukee only 1 game back at 80-57 to the Phillies 81-56. The Dodgers 82-55. So anything can happen in those top 3 seeds. Milwaukee wants the first round bye. The Phillies don't want to give it up because they don't want to play a 3-game wildcard series after all the work they've done this year and being pretty much a short thing to win the National League East. So when you look at it that way, you say, okay, that's going to be a series where if the Phillies go ahead and take advantage, they're probably going to be the 2 seed or the 1 seed. If the Brewers take advantage, they could flip things and they could be sitting in prime position for that first round bye. So that Milwaukee series is the biggest one of the second half. But I wouldn't want that to be like the last series of the year. And you put all that effort into that one. And the next thing you know, it's just like, we expounded all that effort. And now we roll right into the postseason. We feel like we kind of have been playing serious baseball for a while now. No, you go and play 4 more against the Mets, which again, quality opponent. Not the best opponent, but quality opponent. Nothing too crazy. Then you get 3 against the Cubs, who are, like the Mets, on the verge of the postseason, but not all that great. And then you round out with the Nationals, right? The final 3 games against the Nationals. If those games matter for seeding, they're very, very winnable games because the Nationals stink. If they don't matter, perfect opponent to go ahead and just kind of sleepwalk against and just get yourself set up for the postseason. Like, I think it's perfect. And I also think it's super easy. I believe the Phillies have one of the easiest schedules in baseball remaining. We'll just look at the Tankathon strength schedule real quick and see what the Philadelphia Phillies have. But it's much easier now after they went through that stretch where it was like Atlanta and Houston and Atlanta again and Kansas City, playing all those teams like back to back to back. That was definitely something that the Philadelphia Phillies needed to make it through well, and they did. The Milwaukee Brewers, by the way, they have the 9th hardest schedule remaining in all of baseball. The Atlanta Braves, just to take a look, the 24th hardest, so a little bit easier than the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies, the 18th hardest. So they're on the bottom side. The combined winning percentage of remaining teams, 492. But that's right in the sweet spot. You don't want to play nobodies. You don't want to play a tough end of the schedule. You want to play the teams right in the zone where the Phillies are playing them, get your momentum rolling, and find a way to be hot heading into October, which that national series, I think, is going to help with if you need those games. So everything's set up perfectly for the Philadelphia Phillies to get hot down the stretch. They need to be healthy. And they need to be smart now because they put themselves in great positioning. You can't now all of a sudden throw caution to the wind and say, hey, it's go time. Remember, we still got 2 weeks until we hit my go time point of September 15th. That is the zone where it's just like, okay, burn the boats. We're heating up for October. There is no saving people. There is no slowing down. We need everybody ready to go, and you got to start ramping up here. Right now, still, you got a 7-game lead in the division because you had an amazing series over the weekend. You can go out and play smart and conservative baseball and find a way to win baseball games without doing everything you have to do to win baseball games to keep that division lead. You got to focus on that 2 seed, but Milwaukee's in a tough spot with their record, or their schedule, I should say. So you should be able to find a way to the 2 seed without a crazy, crazy amount of effort expounded. I keep saying expanded. And you could put yourself in great position if you're the Philadelphia Phillies. Man, how different does it feel right now than it did 3 weeks ago where the Philadelphia Phillies are at? How quickly it turns around. It's almost like, I don't know where it turned around. I guess like that second game of the Marlins series. It's almost like somebody did something. Somebody flipped a switch. Somebody went in there and talked to them, and they did have a team meeting that day, so I don't mean to take all the credit. But if you're watching on YouTube again, I have the victory shirt on. And I've been wearing it for a couple of weeks now, and their record has been skyrocketing, and people are starting to talk about, did the victory shirt once again save the season? Folks, I don't know what to tell you. All I know is the Philadelphia Phillies are a darn good baseball team, just like we should have thought the whole time along, and they're finally out of that bad stretch, and it's now time for the postseason push. A beautiful weekend series, a great team. What can they do in October, and what can they do to set them up for greatness? We'll find out over the next couple of weeks. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you again for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that stuff that really helps us out here. Once again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I will talk to you tomorrow to preview the series with the Blue Jays, the short 2-game series, on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.